Hi, Maria Rivera Heath here, and once again, I have another video for you this week, and it's ways that trauma manifests in your body, ways that trauma can manifest in your body. And once again, if this video gets to be too much, if the information gets to be too much, feel free to click off. I continue to make these videos because it's very important. The message is very important. One of my girlfriends just informed me last week that she has never suffered any type of sexual abuse or physical abuse of this kind, but yet she can still see herself in some of the symptoms that I talk about from other experiences that she has had in her life. And so once again, I do tend to work with people that have been physically abused, whether it was sexually abused or just physically abused very harshly by their parents, or and just traumatic events that life has happened. So, but today I want to focus on this one particular book that I wrote about. Actually, that I read this past weekend. And the book that I read is called The Apology. It's titled The Apology by Eve Ensler. It's a very well written book of abuse that she suffered growing up. And she, if you don't know, she is the creator of the Vagina Monologues, which is extremely well known and worth watching, worth reading. But just want to get back into like the video of today's video in regards to the how trauma manifests in your body, and how you can pinpoint your trauma if you're suffering from a particular trauma. Because sometimes, life gets in the way and you start working and you start living and you don't really know that there is trauma in your body. So a lot of people that I've seen, and I am going to talk my experience in regards to like the people that I have treated in the past, as from today in the past. So I see people that have suffered from spine issues, particularly the pelvic area. I've seen people that are that have inability to cope in large crowds. Large crowds create tension. They're very tense in regards to like breathing. When they take an inhale, they tend to be shallow breathers. They're not able to take that full breath, because what happens is when the body takes a full inhale, the body has to relax in order to exhale completely. And when the body is hijacked by trauma, it will not allow you to exhale completely, because exhaling completely means the body goes into the relaxed part of the central nervous system. And that scares the living daylights out of people that have experienced trauma, because they're so used to being hypervigilant. So it takes the exhale, when someone exhales completely, it takes the central nervous system from the fight or flight into the rest and digest, which means you can be caught off guard. And that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of people do one-on-one yoga, because at least that person, and I do one-on-one yoga too with some of my clients, is because they know that I'm the only one in the room. They know no one is going to walk behind them and touch them without them, first of all, without their permission and without their knowing. So they know that I am the only person in the room standing in front of them, cueing them, so that they can be afloat. They know the door is locked. They know that they're safe in that room. And this is one of the main reasons why I incorporate yoga, not only in my own healing, but I also incorporate yoga with my clients, because whether it's through breath or whether it's through movement, because yoga does help the body relax, helps the body relax the muscles inside, in a very safe and contained atmosphere, in a very sacred space. And if your therapist is also a yoga provider, have them, hire them for a one-on-one. Talk to your therapist about creating that sacred space so that you can experience and your body can remember how to relax, because it is part of the healing process. Other things that your body can manifest in regards to like the trauma can manifest in your body is difficulty sleeping. Again, when the body, and I know that a lot of my clients work nights because they were attacked in the night, and so they work nights so that during the day they can sleep during the day, and no one is at home. You know, they can see. It's just the way that the mind is working. So that's something, you know, the difficulty sleeping, GI issues, which means your stomach has issues, the tense, having the body be tense all the time, the shrugged shoulders all the time. You have to remember to bring those shoulders down to the earth and root and ground. Another thing is, and this is something that Anne Ensler discussed in her book. She was having difficulty learning, and she thought that she was stupid. She is one of the most brilliant females that I have ever been lucky enough to witness working. And she had difficulty learning when she was growing up, and also some of my clients had difficulty learning while they were growing up, and that made them feel extremely incompetent. Not that they were, and not that they are, but just the trauma, the traumatic brain doesn't allow you to learn as a non-traumatized brain. And so another thing is that a lot of people that have experienced trauma become traumatizers. And so they become the bully. And then because that trauma is trying to get out of your body, and it will get out of your body somehow. However, you know, you can ignore your pain, you can ignore your trauma all day, every day, but your trauma will never ignore you. Your trauma, your pain will constantly knock on your door to let it out. It is part of the brain, and it is part of the body trying to go into homeostasis, which is trying to create balance, trying to get back to where it originated when it was born, non-traumatized. The body knows and the brain knows that something's going off and something needs to be done, and your pain will continue to knock on your door until you open the door and you listen and you watch whatever it is that's there, and you process this information. Something else is codependency. The traumatized body, the traumatized brain creates codependency with others, meaning that you will have a difficult time, like you will think that you can't live without this person. You're so dependent on that person, which is a perception that a child creates with its perpetrator, or a woman or a man creates with whatever environment that they're in. I don't know if you've ever watched or read the book A Child Called It. That boy, he created this dependency with his mom. It was his mother, and this was written way a long ago. But again, it also creates the traumatized brain, the traumatized body creates emotional addictions to people, and that reminds me of Carl Jung. Carl Jung, the psychiatrist, worked with the shadow self, and all of these things, the body being tense, the traumatized brain, the not being able to learn, feeling stupid, feelings of unworthiness, or feeling dirty. That's something that that my clients experience too, and I hear it all the time in regards to feeling dirty. And that experience, I can't pinpoint where I learned, but I was reading a book not too long ago, and I wish, I'm going to see if I journaled about it, because there's a course that I'm going to be pushing out on this fall in regards to creating sacred space around this area. But I read something where the word dirty, because I hear that quite often, and it's an energy that's being transferred from the attacker to the victim, and the victim carries that dirtiness. But in reality, the victim is never dirty. The perpetrator is the one that feels dirty and takes that energy and transmits it to the victim. And so, because the victim is a container and it holds that shit until the victim lets it go, female or male. It works. Energy doesn't know if you're a female or if you're a male. That's the way that trauma gets transferred. This particular sexual abuse gets transferred. But there is a Greek word, and there is something that I have to either remember. I don't remember if I wrote it down or not. But there's more to that effect. The universal language that comes with sexual trauma, it is universal. The words that are being used by the same people that I see, that I hear on a day-to-day basis in my office, the words that the women and the men use are universal, which is extremely interesting from my point of view doing the research for my class that I want to teach. But it's also saddening because it's such a huge topic. But anyway, Carl Jung, all of this is what he referred to as the shadow self, the self that you keep in the shadows, that you don't tell anybody, that you don't want anybody to know or see. On the other hand, Sigmund Freud was the id, the identified you. So these are the two, things that as I write and as I read, things come up, and I want to be able to share whatever it is that I learn with you so that you can also have information. And my goal is to get you into therapy, get you into a yoga class for you to start your journey in your healing process. Okay? So that is the stuff that happens when you have trauma in your body and you haven't worked your trauma. So move on to a year or two of you having therapy. Now you've worked your trauma. Now what does it look like for you after you've experienced healing from the inside out? Boundaries. Your boundaries with your family are a lot clearer. Your boundaries with yourself are a lot clearer. You hold yourself higher. You have higher standards for yourself. You don't take shit anymore. You want more out of life, and you know that you have it within you to get what it is that you want. Okay? So that's something that comes when you've worked your trauma. Your connection to yourself. You're much more connected to yourself. You're much more able to say yes. When unworked trauma, you don't have the power within you. You always have the power, but you don't feel like you have the power to say no. And people take advantage of that. They think that, because you can't say no or whatever it is. No, you can say no. You just haven't learned yet. You don't have the space, the safety ground to say no, and people to respect your no. When you've worked your trauma, you can say no, and you can say yes. And like I always said, if it's not a no and it's not a yes, it's a not yet. But you always have the power to speak whatever it is, the truth that you have inside you. Another thing is you're going to be okay with making mistakes. Like you're not going to feel stupid. You're like, oh, I made a mistake. So what? You move on. You keep it moving. You keep it going. You tend to be able to empathize with yourself. You're able to be compassionate with yourself, something that is completely new to you. You're able to be more in gratitude. You live in more in gratitude. When you have trauma, it's very hard to be grateful because you're like, the world seems very small. But when you work your trauma, the world expands right in front of your eyes. The colors become brighter. And I'm telling you from experience, I'm talking to you from what I've experienced. And from also not only my experience, but from my clients' experiences as well. So this is something, if you have not yet gone to therapy and you have not yet worked your trauma, these are the things that I'm telling you can look forward to. This is something that, has happened to me and has happened to many people. And your worthiness goes through the roof. You unlearn what doesn't work for you anymore, and you learn to know what works. So that's something that you can look forward to. You can also look forward to more mindfulness moments. You can look forward to being more humble with yourself and more joy with yourself. And remember that your brain has perceptions. You know, when a traumatized brain has childhood perceptions and the adult perceptions are very different. So one of the things that a few things that I wrote down that I want to leave you with is, please don't believe everything that you think. Everything that comes into your mind is not true. You know, like be able to decipher, because if you're an adult, if you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s or whatever age you are, and you're still carrying trauma from your childhood, a lot of the thoughts come from your childhood perspective, not your adult perspective. And a lot of your behaviors and a lot of reactions stem from your childhood, your inner child being hurt. And from an adult, you might be like, what the hell, where that shit came from, and if you don't know that it's your inner child speaking, you're going to take stands and you're going to create decisions and create actions based on that child instead of you as an adult. The traumatized brain does play tricks on you. It's not clear because it's still, what you see from your adult perspective is not what your childhood brain sees from a childhood perspective. So what you see as an adult may not be what your inner child is perceiving. So the perception is very tricky there. Try not to buy into labels. And what I'm saying, not designer labels. What I'm trying to tell you is try not to buy into the labels of you are X, Y, and Z, and you have 1, 2, 3. I'm not even going to share the labels because I don't like labels. I don't like when people say I am this or I have that. And, work your trauma. And then after you work your trauma, then you tell me what you have and what you don't have. Then we'll talk about labels if you still have them. But until then, until you've worked your trauma, get rid of that shit. And then tell me what you have and what you don't have, because then your perception will be a lot clearer, not only about labels, but about yourself. That's when we'll have the label conversation. So you define who you are, okay? You decide if you want to continue to live in your mental prison, and you decide to define who you are. Nobody decides that. You decide to do that. Heal from your past so that you don't repeat it. Okay, so you don't do what was done to you to other people, and that you don't pass it on to your children. Okay, so that is the most important thing ever. Don't pass the shit on, knowing that you have this, whatever it is, all this stuff, all these secrets on, don't pass those things on, because let me tell you something. Secrets that are not spoken about, ever giving the word, those still get passed on. They're, I'm like, there's still secrets that people, you can read energy. We all sense energy. We all sense the vibe that we get from others. We get that shit too. We know when there's a secret there that you know what to say, you know what not to say. Those things are passed on too. So work it. Take responsibility for your health. Take responsibility, especially your mental health. And then try not to make other people responsible for your healing. You are responsible for your healing. What was done to you, you were not responsible for that. There's nothing that you did to have that happen to you. Whatever, whether it was physical abuse, sexual abuse, or an accident or whatever. That you did not create that in your life, but you are responsible to heal that so that you don't pass it on to future generations, and that you don't repeat it, and that it doesn't ooze out of you through hate, anger, or like rage or anything like that. Or just, a lot of people don't even go through all this rage. They just cry all day. They relive that trauma every day, every day, every day, and they just live in this state of sorrow and suffering. Take responsibility. Get out of that, okay? And one of the things, remember this. your perception, like I mentioned before, right? Like whatever happened to you when you were a child or whenever, and that is sexual abuse that I'm talking about. Remember this, your perception of what happened to you may be more damaging to you right now of what happened, but that is the perception of a child, right? The perception of a healed adult is very different. So the perception that you have as a traumatized child is going to be very different than the perception of a healed adult. And why is that? Because while you go through your therapy process, while you go through your journey, you will be unlearning what needs to be unlearned, and you're going to be learning what you need to learn. For example, you'll learn how to meditate, you'll learn how to journal, you'll learn how to get those feelings out of your body and onto paper, or out of your body onto your yoga mat, or out of your body and out into the woods if you're walking out into the woods. That's what you'll be learning throughout your journey. And so this is what I have for you. And in order for you to heal, you have to feel. There's no way that you can heal your trauma of what happened to you as a child, whether it was sexual abuse or physical abuse or both, verbal abuse, neglect. There's no way that you can heal that from 10 feet away. There's no way. You have to be connected. You have to create connection to yourself, and you have to be able to open that door of your inner child and allow your inner child to speak and give it light, give it the words, and give it the motions of whatever motions your body needs to create so that you can heal completely, fully, and spiritually. So this is what I have for you today. It's heavy as all shit, I know, but the topic is heavy. It needs to be talked about. And one of my friends asked me, why do I keep creating these videos? And it's because I can create these videos. And if I can get one person into a yoga class, which I've done plenty, I've gotten many messages. So these videos are working. And as long as these videos are working, I will continue to speak because it's what I do. And it comes natural to me. It's not extra work. And I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. I'm here to live my passion and live my truth. So from my heart to yours, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Erica, thanks for watching. I see you. And many blessings to you. Have a beautiful week. The summer's wonderful. It's going great. So thanks again for watching. Namaste.